Hello everyone, this is Borna Kazerani from Melbourne, Australia. I hope you are doing fine and having a great time. So, today I'm going to have a conversation with Rob Woodcox, who was born in 1990 in Houston, USA. He's a fine art and fashion photographer. As he creates each artwork, Rob strives to capture fragments of vivid life sound by the threads of reality, memory, and dream. Each concept is a declaration of his experience and seeks to tell a meaningful story to each individual that views it. Rob has produced projects raising consciousness and conversation around US foster system and adoption, queer identity, body neutrality, and racial diversity, and environmental justice. Having been adopted as a child and interacting often with foster care system, Rob creates from a unique perspective, finding hope in a human connection and the will to overcome negative constructs within our complex societies. Rob has taught thousands of students in 6 continents, 15 countries, and 34 cities worldwide. He's taught over 85 workshops to date. In 2020, Rob released his first photographic art book, Bodies of Light. Now let me ask Rob to join me for a conversation. Just waiting. Rob. Rob. Hello.
It took Instagram a second.
Hello.
Hello.
How do you find? So before we start, are you using your Wi-Fi or data?
Data.
Okay, it's much better. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a chill day here in Mexico. I've been working at home all day, so after this interview, I'm gonna go outside, take in some fresh air.
Okay, that's fine. So it's quite cold here in Melbourne. So would you like to say hi to those who are watching us now or maybe later?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you. Excited to be here with Borna. He has an incredible story, so I thought, hey, I'd love to have a fun conversation on here.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I've got lots of questions. I've gotten lots of questions from people everywhere around the world. So the questions have started coming through. Hopefully we get a chance to go through them, but usually I don't because I've gotten like my questions here. So, yes. So I want to congratulate you on publishing your first book called Bodies of Light. So tell me about this book, please.
Sure. So this is a really exciting moment for me because I didn't think I was going to have a book until I was at least like 40 years old. And here I am at 29 with my first book. So yeah, Bodies of Light is 172 pages. It covers the first 11 years of my photography. Mostly the last, 4 to 5 years, but some of my older work made its way into the book. And yeah, it's all about bodies of light. We are bodies of light. We create in spaces that are bodies of light. And I wanted to sort of represent that in a book format. So it's a beautiful coffee table book. People can have it in their homes, and it's kid and baby approved, apparently. I had some friends send me a photo this week of their baby like flipping through the book. It was the cutest thing ever.
I can't wait to buy it. I can't wait to have it, actually. I love to have it. So where can we find it? Is that through the Amazon, or is there your website, or where we can purchase the book actually from?
It's available at shopcatalog.com. You can also find it through my website, robwoodcox.com. I have it linked there. And it will be on Amazon soon as well. Things have moved a little bit slower with COVID-19 as far as launching and releasing, but it's a book, so it's physical. It'll be around forever. So we're going to be releasing it in other shops and online avenues soon.
Of course, of course. So your passion for photography has developed into a detection of advocacy and making strained voices heard. I like the details in your biography, but I'd like to hear more about that, please.
Sure. Well, I was adopted when I was like 6 months old. And so I always had a passion for kids who were sort of on the outside. And so when I was a teenager, I started working in foster care. And specifically, I was working with kids that were in group homes. So that means that they didn't have parents, nobody had adopted them, nobody had taken them into their home. So things were extra hard for these kids. I toured one facility at one point, and it was like a cinder block, like home, like, and it was like kids had motel rooms essentially. And I just was thinking, like, and I know that there's so many conditions all over the world. I mean, there's wars going on and all sorts of things, but at the end of the day, kids deserve to have a family. They deserve to have fun. They deserve to be kids, And so knowing what a lot of these kids had been through, I started volunteering and doing that for about 3 years. Every summer, I would go to a camp with foster kids and be a counselor with them. And then for the rest of the year, we would do mentoring once to twice a month. And it was such a rewarding experience. And I think when I was learning about photography and becoming a photographer, it was at the same time that I was working with these kids. And I just thought, I have to use this skill to bring awareness to, this issue, because the system in the US is very broken, as it is all over the world. And so, yeah, I did my first photo project called Stories Worth Telling. It showed foster kids' brightest moments to their darkest moments, and the journey that it took to get to that final, victory of getting a family, or whatever their, final victory was. Even if that was just finding a community. And I realized that this applies to so many different things. Like, community is so important, love is so important, and that's the solution to a lot of human issues that people are going through, feeling lonely, feeling forgotten. So yeah, I continued that advocacy. I came out a few years after that, started to advocate for the queer and LGBTQ community, and have continued to champion racial equality, speaking up for all different body types, disabilities. I think everybody should be standing up for these things, because if we were, then people wouldn't be facing such hard circumstances.
Absolutely, well done. So, as I mentioned before, so you're an amazing photographer with a unique taste, and you point to human issues such as what you just were saying, so as like identity, different races, different religions, different genders, and etc. But one of your iconic elements in your works, which are very special, is using different body languages or skin colors to induce conception. So tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I think, I guess more recently, what people probably have noticed the most and has kind of got out of control, gone viral on Instagram, is my dance series. So when you talk about body language, I think as a photographer, there's so many different styles of photography, and there's so many things that you could focus on. Some prioritize the reality of a situation and do street photography. Some prioritize, the high contrast with black and white photography. For me, I love color, I love movement, and I love telling a story. So for me, when I first started working with dancers, that was like life-changing for me, because dance is another art form where someone's using their entire body to express what they want to say. And I find that incredibly fascinating. I find it really fulfilling to collaborate with other artists that put that much passion into what they do. And so I actually started my current dance series back when Trump was elected in the US as a response to communities needing to come together and sort of fight this evil that became the leader of the US. And I think so many people can relate, because I think we talked about this yesterday. Politics are so messed up all over the world right now. And I think the people of the world all have much better intentions than our governments, and we're fed up and we want things to change. So that series was all about coming together, standing up for what we believe in, making changes together, and how beautiful the world could look if we were able to accomplish that.
Exactly, 100% agree. So another concept which I like to talk about your work is homosexuality. But the way you're showing the equality in your works is admirable. And the reason that I'm saying it, because you don't make a big deal of it. So tell me about that.
Well, I think at the end of the day, anyone who identifies as queer or non-binary or just anything that's not accepted by the mainstream, we're people at the end of the day. And so, I mean, for me, in my artwork, I just want to show people as beautiful, no matter what their sexual orientation or whatever. So, yeah, I guess that's cool that it comes across as just very nonchalant to you, because that's sort of the goal, I guess, just to show people as they are, as beautiful, as, you know, part of society. And as a queer person myself, you know, I didn't see a lot of that representation growing up, even in the US. Like, we're only making a lot of progress in recent years. So, and also growing up Christian, I didn't grow up around gay friends or anything like that. So, you know, for me, I had to find myself as an adult. And then once I discovered photography, it was like the floodgates opened. I was able to sort of like release all of this imagination that was going on in my head. And whether it's queer or not, I don't think is as relevant to the fact that it's just like human and it's imaginative, and that's sort of like what lives within me, and that's what I pour out into my art.
And the way that you're showing it, actually, it's very admirable. I've mentioned, so it's amazing and well done. So yeah, I love that. And as you experience as an experienced photographer, I taught lots of students and have had workshops all around the world, which I found is fascinating and well done. So you also been in Melbourne, Australia. You've been in Melbourne, Australia before, am I right?
Yes, I've taught 2 workshops in Melbourne. I've been to Sydney and Brisbane. I haven't been to the west side of Australia yet, but I would love to go.
Okay. And now I want to know actually what's the most common issue which is very challenging for beginners like who wants to learn photography. And what's the first things that you usually or often tell to those who are interested to learn photography? What do you usually say to them?
I would say, you know, it sort of depends on your goals. I mean, and I think that applies to everything in life. Because, you know, especially when I teach a workshop, I attract, you know, beginning students who want to make photography their career. And I also attract, you know, moms or sometimes young kids or dads or whatever who have had a career and now they're sort of doing this as a hobby. So maybe their goal doesn't depend on making money or whatever. They just want to, you know, better their skills. So for me, I guess if I have to narrow it down, my best advice is to focus on what you love within that craft. And, you know, when I was in the beginning of doing photography, I had 3 part-time jobs. I was going to school for photography. I didn't have any financial support from my family. I basically started from complete scratch. And so for me, it was very difficult because, of course, I had dreams of, being Annie Leibovitz and working with magazines and all of these things. But to build up to the point where you can actually do that and sustain that full time, it takes a lot of work and a lot of years to build a reputation. So for me, the focus for me was making sure that I always kept the passion alive by doing personal projects. And so in the beginning, I was doing some things that I didn't enjoy as much. I was shooting weddings. I was shooting some client work that I wasn't as interested in, like product photography. And, some people are great at those things, but they weren't for me. What I wanted to do was meaningful storytelling, portrait photography. And so I just kept doing that. And I kept showing that even when I wasn't working for that. And even when I was busy doing a part-time job. And eventually people associated me with that. And over the years, my obsession with, keeping the personal work alive allowed me to develop the skills I needed to then take on bigger clients and make it a full-time thing. And luckily, I had experience teaching kids for about 10 years before I went full-time with photography. So that carried over really nicely to teaching workshops. And so I sort of started out doing workshops locally. And then that's when I started going, once those were successful, I started traveling all over North America and eventually all over the world, teaching workshops and seminars.
Tell me, okay, that's very interesting. And also, I'm just wondering, when was the moment that you felt that you want to be a photographer and you knew that? I want to know what the connection between you and what you're doing as a photographer yourself.
Yeah, it's such a weird, when people ask me this question, it's so bizarre to recall what made me start as a photographer, because I was 19 years old. I had just graduated the year before from, high school. Actually, no, I must have been 18 because, I graduated when I was 17. And so I just remember my whole life, my favorite thing in life was anything imaginative, going into nature, drawing, painting. But I wasn't super good at the drawing and the painting. So I was like, what else can I do? And I always carried around this point and shoot camera since I was a kid. But I didn't think of it as an art. I just took photos for fun. But then it clicked in my mind. I had been on yearbook in high school as well. And I thought I could do this for a job. And I like this more than painting and drawing. So I'm just going to try going to school for it and see what happens. Because I didn't want to do anything academic. I don't do well with reading big textbooks and taking tests and all. That doesn't work for me. I'm more of a creative learner, a visual learner. So yeah, I basically just one day I decided I'm going to school for photography. I hope it works out. And it did. Took a while, but it worked out. And I'm very thankful that I trusted my instincts. I've always been pretty good at trusting my instincts, and I would definitely encourage others to do the same.
I've got exactly the same story like yours. I'm not a academic person.
Yeah.
At all. No, I can't. So, Rob, let's do something different now.
Okay.
Okay, so what would you like to do? So, let's do something. Can you show us, or can you give us a tour? So, if there's any project you're working on right now and you're interested in showing us, or whatever you prefer. So
cool. I guess so a lot of the projects I'm working on right now are sort of top secret, so it's kind of hard to show, but I am shooting something this Friday that I'm very excited about. I have a platform, it's called Better, BETR, and they feature positive stories to sort of inspire people about what's going on in the world, because obviously there's a lot of dark things happening, and we're bombarded with media that can be a little bit depressing. And a
Of
lot of
course.
that is important right now. Obviously, there's a lot of movements that need our attention at this moment, specifically the Black Lives Matter movement. However, I do think everybody deserves, you know, a certain amount of time every day to be inspired, to be uplifted, and to be encouraged. And especially people that are at the front lines of the movements right now, they need inspiration. They need that fuel to keep going. And so I'm going to be working with this platform to create a very exciting inspirational piece. And basically, we are going to be body painting a model, incorporating different fabric elements, which is very exciting. And yeah, we're going to be talking about sort of the intrinsic connection that humans have to nature that we've lost since the industrial age began, and talking about how
Right.
to sort of reconnect with that natural sense. So yeah.
Okay, so is there anything that you can show us? Something on your computer, or is there anything, or no, you don't have any,
Okay, I guess, let me see.
or your book, probably. I don't know, whatever it's there.
um, okay, well, I can sort of show you the way that it has come together. So anytime, sorry, it's starting to get a little bit dark here. Anytime
That's right.
I,
Camera, and then.
yeah, I will. I will in a moment. Anytime I come up with a new concept, there's so many elements to it. Like, first of all, there's like the visual concept. So it's like, what's inspiring me in this moment? And right now, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of wars going on. And like I said, people are kind of feeling disconnected from nature. Um, and so I had to think about, I'm going to show you this artist in a second that I'm going to be working with this weekend. But I had to think about, like, how could I create something that shows someone sort of reconnecting with nature? And I thought, why not turn the person into nature? So I've really been inspired by textures lately, and I'm going to show you this artist. This is sort of where I got my inspiration for this specific collaboration, but the artist is my friend Roy. His Instagram is soy__Roy on Instagram. And he is an incredible painter. Now, when I am thinking about new things to create, I love collaborative work. And I had seen some of these pieces that he had done, and I thought, why not put that on a real body? Like, why not put that on a human? And also with everything going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, I wanted to specifically feature a Black person. So our model is going to be Black. And I'm going to be talking about, I mean, look at this. It's so cool. This is actually a photograph by my friend Fernando. His Instagram is fdiazphoto. And they actually collaborated and painted over the image. Here's a quick preview of Fernando's work. We're hopefully doing a weekend trip soon to create art as well. But yeah, like for me, inspiration comes in so many different forms. And I mean, sometimes I'm like in a cafe and they have really weirdly illustrated wallpaper, and that inspires a concept. And sometimes I'm hiking on a mountain and I see a beautiful vista, and I imagine suddenly like a tree of humans growing out of that scene. So the way my mind works is very strange. And you know, when people ask me to show them like my inspiration, a lot of it is just in my head, to be honest. I don't do a lot of sketching. My sketches are so bad. They're like stick figures. Like, I will show you some sketches if you want to see inspiration. But yeah, basically, like, I spend a lot of time meditating. After this call, actually, there's a meditation that I'm going to be doing this evening. I've been doing, excuse me, I've been doing the 21 Days of Abundance meditation by Deepak Chopra. And yeah, anyways, in that time of meditation, I often get visuals. And so for me, it's really important to write those down. So it could be emotional. It could be like an emotional journal that I write about. It could be an exact vision. Like I remember when I did my tree of life photo, I actually had that exact vision in my head. And just in case just so everybody knows what I'm talking about, this is the tree of life photo. When I did that photo, what was that?
Video and then play it after. Is that a video? Am I right?
Yeah, it's just like an interview video. Here.
Okay.
It's just from my Vogue Portugal feature. Vogue and GQ Portugal Unity issue. Anyways, I'm gonna pause that because, you know, people can watch it on Instagram if they want after the interview. But yeah, basically, like when I was thinking of that image, I saw that before I ever created the image. And once I had seen that concept, from there, it was more about finding the right models, finding the right location. I actually remember a friend was telling me about these sand dunes on the coast of Mexico. And I was like, that's the spot. That's where I have to create this tree image. I wanted the tree to be in a desert-like environment so it would feel like an oasis in the middle of the desert. And at the time, again, we were facing issues with police brutality in the US. We were facing issues with the government being terrible and basically not taking care of its people. So I wanted to talk about how we as people can come together and be that oasis in the desert for ourselves, for our communities. And that's sort of where that tree of life image was born. And so like I was saying, for me, it's really important to meditate, to take time in nature. And so I'll show you, I'm gonna just scroll through really fast so I don't give away all my secret ideas. But I have a note, I use Evernote, and I literally, like, I have different inspiration pictures. I have different written concepts. This is what I was talking about my drawing. It's terrible, but usually it gets the point across to whoever I'm working with. But I put my location scouting images in here. I write a lot of things. This is, again, terrible sketch, but it gets the point across when I'm talking to my collaborators. This is one that I'm really excited to create. I'm not gonna say too much because I don't want the idea to get stolen. But yeah, basically I write and I write and I write and I save all my ideas. This is just sort of a color palette mood board that I saved from an artist that I really love. And yeah, it's sort of like a mix of everything. You'll never understand what this is or what this means until you see it in a photo. But yeah, that's a little bit about my process. For me, I find, and what's cool is like I have so many crazy ideas. Like sometimes I also do music sessions. So I'll pick one of my favorite artists, often folk artists like the Fleet Foxes or Josh Garrels, or what's that guy's name? Oh, he's so good. Moses Sumney, so good. So I'll listen to these artists and they have these amazing stories in their songs. And when I hear stories, I see a visual. It's like I'm watching a short film in my mind. So actually at some of my workshops, I do a music exercise and I work with my students to create these really visual concepts. And it's cool because everybody learns differently. So sometimes half of my students don't think that way. So they're not seeing visuals, they're seeing a color or they're seeing just like a face or whatever. And so it's interesting because I think a lot of people get inspiration in different ways. But nonetheless, I do all of these different inspiration exercises, whether it's meditating in nature, meditating to a guided meditation, listening to music, and then I just write. And I'll get ideas for short films, I'll get ideas for still photos, and I document all of it because the thing I've learned as an artist and as a creative is if you don't document things, they disappear. It's just like when you have an amazing dream and then you wake up and if you don't write it down, you forget it, right? The same thing happens with ideas. So for me, I think capturing ideas is a really important part of the process. And, you know, I would encourage anybody who is a creator who's trying to like get better at conceptualizing their concepts, make sure you always have a note with you. Like I just use my, like I said, Evernote app on my phone, which is always with me, as with most people. It's like our third arm at this point. So yeah.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Thank you. And most of your work um, is conceptual. So, what do you do when you want to work on a sensitive topic? Or is it important for you to like research a lot about the topic, or not? Not really. You want to, or you prefer just
Um,
like put your creativity rather than just.
yeah, I mean, for me, most of the issues that I create about are personal. So they're things that have affected me personally. Um, I'm definitely a firm believer that the strongest stories are the ones that you've experienced. And I would never, I could never pretend to tell the story of, someone who has a different experience than me. So for me, my dance series, everything that I've gained in life has been from finding people that think like me and finding other creatives and finding other open-minded people in the ways that I am, right? So that is how I found my I guess happiness in life was through community. And so that's what that whole series was about. And anything that I create is through something that I've experienced firsthand. I have very close relationships with people all over the world. So I guess you could say my experiences are pretty broad. Um, but yeah, I guess, I mostly try to create from stories that I know about. And on the occasional circumstance that I'm telling someone else's story, absolutely. I research, I have an interview with them. I do everything I can to make sure that I'm prepared for the shoot. And especially when I'm working with high level clients, when high level clients approach me wanting to create work that's like mine, I have to sort of educate them on the fact that this type of work requires time, it requires effort, it requires research, especially if they want me to do something specifically related to like the LGBTQ community or whatever. And we all know that companies love to um, represent for like the moment that it's trending, but the goal is to get companies and everybody to represent everybody all the time. And so for me, that's a big part of my work is sort of putting the work out there myself and setting the example for other brands, other organizations to sort of step it up and represent everybody.
Wow. Okay. So, all right. So, what I'm understanding is like you use your own experiences and then go with that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's very something that you mentioned earlier. That the idea, whatever inspires you, like is already formed in your mind and your thoughts, and then you go with that. You see the result before you're gonna start.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So I guess with that look, I don't know if that makes my process easier or harder. I think it makes it harder because I think a lot of photographers are very spontaneous, or there's some combination of like plans plus spontaneity. But to be honest, I see very clear images in my mind, and I'm not satisfied until I achieve that specific result. So, for example, the tree of life photo that I showed you guys before, and for anyone who may have just joined, I'll show you again. So, this is just a great image to reference, the tree of life, because it's one of my most known images, and it was also one of the most complex images to create from the skills I had before. That was like a level up for me. I was working on location. I shot everything on location. But imagining how to shoot it and how to then position it later, because it's much of it is built in camera, and then certain portions of it were worked together in post-processing in Photoshop. So having the ability to imagine what it would look like later, that was a process. And that's something that I've been
Right.
getting, yeah, that's something that I've been getting better and better at each time. But yeah, like I was saying, I don't know if seeing the image before makes it easier or harder, because on one hand, you can go into the shoot feeling confident in what you want. But on the other hand, it's like, how do you put the pieces together in the perfect way to get the result that you want? And I will say, there are times to this day that I don't get exactly what I want, but I'm
Yeah.
okay with the result. And every once in a while, if I'm just doing an experimental shoot for myself, it just like won't turn out. Like it won't be if I'm trying something new that I've never done before, it's like I learned from that experience, but it's not what I wanted. And then I just like try it again a different way later. Um, but typically what's good about also working with clients is that typically when they approach me, they want something, or they want an element of something that they've already seen in my work. So that at least makes it like a guarantee that I can deliver what they want. And in the meantime, I continue to experiment with other styles in my personal work.
Of course. Rob, it was such a pleasure having you here today.
Yes, thank you for
And
having
I
me.
really enjoyed. Unfortunately, there are lots of questions, and unfortunately, I have to wrap it up. And it always happens, and I never get a chance to go to people questions, unfortunately. Thank you so very much. I love what you're doing, and I hope to see you one day in the reality.
Yeah, next time I'm in Australia.
Face to face. Did you like our conversation?
Absolutely, it was so much fun. One day I've got to hear more about you. You have an incredible story.
Thank you. Well, my story, I want people when watching, I will share my story definitely one day. And yes, yes. Yeah, my story is not probably as exciting as yours, but it's
I don't know about that.
shocking.
It's exciting, I would say. I mean, maybe it's not always the most easy, but it's very exciting. I was very intrigued listening to a little bit of it yesterday. So that's
That's
the
very
cliff.
sweet of you. Yeah.
That's the cliffhanger for everybody
Do-
watching. They have to come back and watch your
Okay,
story whenever you decide to share it.
okay, fair enough. Do you want to ask me any question?
I guess what would you say is the most challenging part of being a filmmaker? Because as a still photographer, I really respect what filmmakers do.
Okay, I came from. I'm Iranian. I was born in Iran. I grew up in Iran. I left Iran at age of 20, as I mentioned. So I'm just telling those who don't know me probably. And when you're working in Islamic country as a filmmaker or artist, you were born or you're born with censorship, and you can't
Yes.
do much. Censorship also helps lots of people to become even more creative because you don't have a freedom of speech. And whatever you have to come up with that and make your story unique. All right. Um, Unfortunately, my story is a shocking story. Okay, and as you probably know a little bit of that. So when I was at the age of 17, as you know that, so I made my first film at the age of 13. Okay. And at the age of 15, I was recognized as the youngest Iranian filmmaker. I became famous in media. And then what happened at the age of 17, I made my first feature film, and 200 people were involving of making that film. But unfortunately, Iranian authorities probably didn't like, or the Iranian government didn't like the movie I made. And then, as soon as we finished shooting or filming my first feature film, I was arrested through the intelligence organization department, and they put me because the controversy of the movie I was making, and it was about women rights. And at that age, everyone wondering that how that idea crossed my mind. Anyways, long short story, they put me, I was arrested. They put me, I was jailed for 6 months. They took me, and I don't know where I was. And because they were suspicious of that there were a group of political activists who were supporting me to produce that film. And obviously there was nobody but myself.
Yes.
And then I had gotten 280 lashes on my body.
Wow.
And I've got a scar here on my foot and everything. And I was raped when I was in jail. They raped me by hot egg, and they shoved me in my ass. I'm sorry for my language, but and each interrogation was taking like between 2 or 5 hours. And yeah, and then I was released from the prison after 6 months. And plus, I'm gay. So if you're identified as a homosexual in Iran, you will be executed if you've been caught in the same, if like if you have sex with somebody. But I couldn't see any future for my filmmaking in Iran, and I was banned through the government to continue filmmaking in Iran forever. And then my family were quite like afraid about my circumstances. I couldn't even walk on the streets. My pictures were everywhere in the media and newspapers, magazines, and then I had no other options but leave my motherland forever. The Iranian passport doesn't have much value after the revolution happened in Iran back in 1979. So there were like certain countries that we could apply to go to, and Australia was one of them. Well, America, I was trying to go to America, but as the Iranian government and American government, perfect connections.
Yeah, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
I was rejected. Yes, I was rejected 5 times to go to America. And then I left Iran legally as an international student to come to Australia. But I knew that I won't go back to Iran because I don't have much great experiences regarding of being artist or filmmaking in my motherland. I left Iran in 2006 and I migrated in Australia. It's been lost for 15 years that I never returned. I cannot return my blacklist, so I'll be arrested as soon as I arrive in Iran. And I haven't seen my family and friends and parents for almost 15 years.
Wow.
And when I arrived in Australia, I couldn't speak English, and I was struggling a lot. I was homeless for a few months. I was living on the streets. Anyways, the all is not about me.
No, that's okay.
You.
It's a fascinating story to hear. I do have 2 follow-up questions, actually. It's funny because actually in the next 2 months, I'm going to be doing a series talking with activists and artists all over the world who have been through some pretty incredible experiences. And so this feels natural to me. I recently did an interview with an LGBTQ activist in Kazakhstan who is working to fight the system there, the oppressive system there. So this is very interesting to me, and I think it's important for people to hear these stories. But you know, I know we only have a few minutes left, so my 2 questions are: one, and if this is too personal, obviously you don't have to answer, but what was the thing that got you through the prison experience? Like, what did you think about every day? What saved you from that internally? Because I think we have a lot of power internally. I'm curious what you would say.
I don't give up easily. I love filmmaking. I love, as soon as I started to become closer to myself and I understand about a self-love concept, the things changed. and upside down. And that was the beginning of like thriving in my life. So, and self-love is a key, and hope. I left my family, I left everything behind. I was, as I've said, homeless, was living on the street in Australia, in Sydney. I used to live in Sydney. Uh, I was living under the Harbour Bridge for a few months. I was living different cemeteries, but the only thing that was sticking with me was hope. I had no other choices. I had no other option. I had to stick with what I was believing. I wanted to become a filmmaker. I wanted to become a good artist, not famous, good artist, and make the thing, like find my uniqueness or my style. And that's why I left my parents, family, everything, even the country where I was born, behind to be where I want to be. And where I am, it's not where I was thinking, but you know, the things keep changing.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and the all experiences like helped me to write a book which is called I Have No Gender. And it took me 7 years to write that book. And I finished that writing that book actually last year. So
Congratulations.
and I'm gonna publish. Thank you, thank you. It was kind of therapy, you know, whilst I was writing about that, about my own experiences. It's a really shocking story. It's my book. My book is extremely shocking story, and but it will open people eyes, in particular in country like Australia, because a lot of people, million people think that the bad things is not really happening in Australia, but I've been through it and I can prove it because um, I can prove it.
Yeah, you've been
And
there.
there
You've
are
lived
lots.
it.
Yeah, I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot, and I'm so privileged that I've been through lots of horrible and bitter experiences in my life because I'm an extremely experienced person today,
Wow.
and I don't give up, and I'm strong, and nothing destroys me. Nothing.
That's amazing. And you said even when you were in prison and even when you had to leave your own country, self-love and hope got you through and your love for filmmaking. So in a way, art saved you. Had you practiced the art of self-love before going to prison? Was that already part of your life and your experience?
But at the age of 17, I didn't know really what was happening. And I started learning about self-love later on. And I made a movie about that. I've sent it to you, three that I made recently last year. No, the only thing that I knew and I always know about myself is believing in you. It doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what your friends thinks. It's all about you. You. If you want to become a successful human being, just believe in your idea and learn about yourself. You know, we are not a majority of people. We are gay, so we've been always judged through other people, you know, on the planet. So I started fighting, and like because I used to be called like poofter or you know whatever. So you experienced that
Yeah.
also probably. So, but there are always people judging you every day, no
Yeah.
matter you're Persian, you're American, you're German, you're Arab. It doesn't matter. Judging is a part of the daily basis, like the people have it every day in the planet. So just believe in you, hope, and don't give up.
Absolutely.
Some people living in the past. No, no, I don't live in the past. I live in the moment. And what future gonna bring for me, I don't know. I have no clue. And what I love here, because when I was in prison, when I was raped, when I had gotten like lashes on my body, I didn't know that one day I'm gonna end up in the country which is called Australia. I had no clue about Australia. I didn't know anything. But can you imagine that you're living in a country because you love to make a movie, or you're creating of art or a movie because the government does not agree with what you're doing, put you in the jail and rape you and flogging you because you're an artist,
It's insane.
because you want to show
It's
that,
a crime against
well,
humanity.
and well, yeah, it doesn't exist in many countries. Even the first world countries, they're talking about humanity. Sometimes you don't see that much, but in comparison, we're comparing to like third world country or second world country is completely different. But yeah, I was really, really struggling, but I'm so glad I made that decision to leave my motherland. I do not want to return to Iran, because Iran's changed since I left. People have changed since I left. I've changed since I've left, and yeah, woof.
So, so that's an incredible story. I told you you had an incredible story. I'm sure anyone that's still watching or just joined agrees. For anyone who did just join, we were talking about Borna's incredible journey, surviving jail as a filmmaker. The Iranian government didn't agree with his vision and literally threw him in jail, raped him, and he had to escape. He had to escape his country because he would not be able to do what he loved. And I find that incredible. I think that you're a strong, brilliant person. So my last question for you would be, what would you have to say to anyone who might still be in that type of situation? Because I come from the US. We have a lot of issues, but we do have a lot of freedoms. We can express ourselves. Maybe not in certain areas in the South. You don't want to go there. You might get murdered there. But, you know, I grew up in an environment where I felt safe. And when I did come out, I felt like I could tell people around me. So for anyone who might be in Iran or any other country, there's still 75 countries in the world where it's illegal to be gay. So for anyone who might be in one of these places and doesn't know what to do or is losing hope, what would you say to them?
It's a very sensitive and it's very important question, but I can't talk for myself. Every single person on the planet's got a different experiences and vision towards what they're experiencing. What I experienced, I don't know anybody else who's been in jail, being raped, being flogged because he wanted to become a filmmaker, or he was making a movie, the government didn't like it. And do not lose hope. As soon as you lose your hope in such crazy and critical circumstances, you are dead. You are dead. You don't exist anymore. As soon as you don't understand about yourself, I have no filter. I'm the really term of friendship with me. I know about my shit things. I know about my good things. And I have no filter. And it scares people. And that's why it makes me unique.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's it. So, and that's it. I have to wrap it up. I would love to continue talking to you.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know we already got to chat a bit yesterday, so I feel good about it. But I hope everybody got something out of this. I think you have an incredible story. So I'm glad I switched the roles on you and became the interviewer, because this kind of conversation is really important, and I think it's really inspiring for a lot of people. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye now.
Bye. Bye, Rafa. What a conversation. I was talking to Rob Woodcox. If you want to find out more about Rob, go to his page and looking at his amazing photography. Love y'all. Take care. Bye.